everyone, and welcome to our very first Wednesday Words of Wisdom. I'm just checking that we are live and everything has loaded up properly because the technology gremlins have not been my friend this week. So I'm just checking that we are definitely live before we start. And I introduce our fantastic, very first VIP guest to the forum. Let me see, are we live? Yes, we are live. Perfect. So I'm just checking that I can hear it on that one. Ah, fantastic. I've just been told we're good to go and we are broadcasting. So, welcome everyone, both locally, digitally, and globally. You are on the Books and Banters Twitch stream, and tonight is our very first Industry Insider interview. And joining me is the epic James Shaw from Tiny Tree Books and Matthew James Publishing. Everyone give him a round of applause. Welcome, James. Welcome.
Some introduction. That was impressive.
Anyone would think that I have a way with words.
Not me.
Yeah. Anyone would think that I create words occasionally. So, James, how are you today?
I'm good. Yes, busy. First week back at school for the kids, which is so wonderful. After 2 weeks of those little angels being with me 24 hours a day. So I finally got to get stuck back into work.
Nice.
So yeah, it's good. Tired, but good.
Nice. So, can you tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and what's going on? A little bit about who you are, what you do. Oh, we got a bit of a background there. Okay, where's the echo coming from? There we go, that's gone. Echo overload done for the day. So, as I said, can you tell us a little bit about who you are, what you've been up to, and why you're here tonight?
Oh, I have no idea why I'm here tonight. I have no idea why you'd want to talk to me. I'm very happy to be here, but no idea about that. I'm James. I run Matthew James Publishing, which is a publishing outfit that's been around for about, I think it's almost 30 years now. Took over from.
You don't look old enough to be running a publishing house for 30 years.
Oh, thanks. I think I do. But no, I took over from my dad when he passed away. He passed away about 10 years ago. In fact, 10 years this June, he passed away. And yeah, it was a weird situation. I won't go into it in this, but many people have heard the story before. But I took over and since then just kind of dove in. Minimal experience with publishing before anything. It was kind of just like, how can I keep my family business running? And then about 6 or 7 years ago, 8 years ago, I took on Anthony, who is my ride or die, my brother from another mother. And he joined the team, which was at that time just me. And we kind of diverted slightly from what we were doing, and we set up Tiny Tree Children's Books, and that was 6 years ago. Since then we've just been trying to build up this children's book imprint. I kind of started it because for several reasons, but one of the biggest ones was my kids. My first child came along 7 years ago, and I was reading so many children's books. I was just engrossed in it and just loving it, and thought, I want to give this a little bit of a go. We got some submissions through, and I was like, let's try this, and haven't looked back since. Absolutely love it. I love working in children's books. The other parts of the publishing industry are great too, but I love working in children's books. Since then I've just built it, and we've been really lucky that certain individuals have seen this diamond in the rough of a publisher and decided to come over to us and work with us, and help us to move forward. And we're still struggling like every other small business out there. Everybody is, especially now, but we're really lucky to have a fantastic network behind us that just keeps just keeps giving, which is wonderful. So we can keep doing what we love doing, which was children's books. Yeah, like I said, I've got no idea why you've got me here. I'm sure there'll be lots of questions that will come in asking that exact question. As you can see, I dressed up for the occasion as well.
So I'm quite disappointed because I wore my best clothes, and I was expecting you to geek out with me as well, and you just didn't.
No, I had my one-piece t-shirt on before, and then I looked at myself in the mirror and I was going, "You look fat." So I went, "No, I'm not going to wear that," and decided I'm going to put on a big baggy hoodie and do that. Also wearing a hat because I'm bald as the day is long. So I thought, look as good as you can. It's hard.
We can appreciate that. We can appreciate that. So we have got some questions that have been sent through in advance, and if anyone does have any questions that you'd like to ask James, feel free to drop them in the chat and I will ask him. No question too hard, no question too complicated. He is here to be grilled by you guys tonight, so feel free to make the most of him while we've got him. So the first question, and probably the one you get asked the most, is, what do you look for when you're looking through that submissions box and you're looking at those hundreds and thousands of emails that come through? I know we've talked about your fantastic submissions box and how many submissions you get. What is it that you are looking for? What is it that stands out to you and says to you, this is something I need to pay more attention to, this is something I need to dive into a little bit more?
I can't speak for all publishers. I can only speak for us and how we work. But I think we're pretty standard in a lot of ways. I've always felt that the submissions process and query letters and all the rest of it is basically like application process for jobs.
Yeah.
You want to go to the top of the pile. You want to be in there. So send something that's going to catch my eye. Send information about yourself, book, obviously, within the email. Send, make it funny, make it poignant. Give me information about the marketing kind of thing, or that you understand those sorts of things. People who are involved within the industry. Unfortunately, since the advent of the celebrity author, which has kind of taken over, and the fact that there are so many huge publishers out there who are just churning out so much material on such a regular basis, it is very difficult for small publishers and small business owners, small bookshops and things like that, to focus on an indie author, to focus on somebody who's kind of like brand new and just coming in. And so show that you are embedded in the industry, show that you understand the industry, that you understand children's books, and show that you're willing to kind of put the work in, as it were. I suppose it's easier to give bad examples than it is to give good examples.
So if I said to you, I'm going to send you a submission, James, and it's going to start off with, "Dear Mr. Publisher, who I do not know the name of,
no.
Please find attached the best novel you will ever receive.
Oh, I love that.
I will happily give you this novel in exchange for a very large 6-figure advance, and we will make lots of money together. I can't wait until you sign my book. Here you go. Here is the entire manuscript, completely unedited. There you go." Would that be a good example?
No, not really. The three you pointed out a couple of the three worst things that come through for me are a blank email with like a subject matter that just says book and then a couple of attachments. Like one thing there where I'm like, that's lost. I'm not seeing that. I'm not seeing it. I've got 300 odd emails to go through. I'm not seeing something that's got nothing in it. It's not grabbing my attention. It's not pulling me in. I will I put made my bed, I've got a lie in it. I've always tried to reply to everybody. I've always tried to kind of, because I know so many people that get nothing back. And I'm not saying I give reams of feedback to everybody that comes through, but I've always tried to kind of go, sorry, no, not for us, to anybody that sends us anything, because it's closure. It's closure for a person that can kind of go, oh, okay, I'll move on and go do something else. Or I'll try somebody else. So that's the first one, is nothing in there. The second one is people that write a generic email and then CC, not BCC, but CC in every publisher out there. Everyone. I get them regularly. It's like, dear sir or madam, and then about their book being the best thing since sliced bread.
So do you research? Do you research about who you're submitting to, and make sure that
don't send it if you're going to send it to everybody, and you don't want to have to personalize it for every single person out there. Don't show me that you're doing that, like, because I'm not going to work with somebody that doesn't want to work with us.
Yeah.
And the third worst one, and it's really hard. The third worst one is for picture books or for anything like illustration. And people get mixed messages about this. Do I need to add illustrations to my picture book for you to accept it? Is there no illustrations? What do I do here? And I've never had an answer for that. If you want to just submit the MS, the manuscripts, I'll just read the manuscript and have a look at it. It is for any publisher, especially a small one, to have an illustrator already placed with a project is fantastic.
So does that mean that me sending you all those pictures of stickmen all those years ago didn't help with my submission?
No, it did massively.
I've always thought stickmen were my greatest accomplishment.
Yeah.
Illustration next.
It works both ways. I mean, Lucas Twig, which we've just brought, brought out and is on its way to everybody very soon. That had an illustrator already attached, Andy Rigdon, and Jim Landon is the illustrator. And fantastic professional illustration work, absolutely beautiful. The thing came to us as a finished piece.
Yeah,
very easy to say yes to something like that when it's a good book, well illustrated, and it's already done for you. And we can work with that author illustrator team and go for it. The problem comes when people submit a manuscript and say, hey, my sister who did art at GCSE has illustrated this.
Yeah.
And that comes in because everybody works visually. I think I especially work visually. And if the first thing I click on when I look at the attachments, the first thing I click on comes up and it is a bad illustration, like something that you just would not see anywhere, it immediately turns me off and makes it very difficult for me to then separate that from the manuscript that's there. So I think the three worst things: 1, no information at all; 2, no research done; and 3, I suppose it goes under the no research done. It's like, look at other picture books that are out there, look at other stuff that are out there. The illustrations that you're submitting here match that kind of quality, and regardless of style. And if they don't, maybe rethink it. Maybe just send the manuscript and then later on say, hey, by the way, my sister's an artist, and go with that. So it's hard, but yeah, there's I guess so many submissions.
So you get quite a few submissions, and obviously, not everyone is going to get their book published. It's quite a harsh industry. It's quite a tough industry, and I've known people that are amazing writers and illustrators, and some of them, it's taken them 18, 20 years to get published. And now they've got 3, 4, 5 book deals, doing really, really well, but that road is a very, very long path in many cases. But of course, a lot of people see the success stories of someone that submitted their first book on a first draft and it got picked up and got a 6-figure advance, and now they're jet setting off to New York and that sort of thing. Do you have any advice for anyone, starting out that wants to submit, whether it's to you or someone else? You know, what would be your advice to them before they hit that button pressing submit?
Talk to people, like genuinely talk to people, not just your friends and family, but like join Scooby.
For anyone that doesn't know what Scooby is the SCBWI. That's the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators. They are an international organisation with over 22,000 members worldwide. Here in the UK, we have a British Isles branch, and you know, from my own personal experience, they are worth their weight in gold. Are they going to get you a publishing deal? No. Are they going to give you the tools and the skills to get yourself into the position to get yourself a publishing deal? Yes. So yeah, I agree with you there. Things like Scooby and the Society of Authors are
Definitely join in with them. Talk to authors, talk to readers. Like, get out there, get on Twitter, get on Instagram, have a look at what's out there, start conversations with people. Like I say, it's, if you want to sell books nowadays, and however much we don't like to look at it, that's what publishing is. It's selling books. You know, yes, it's lovely with all of the launches and all the rest of it, but the end result is, are you selling copies of your product? Are you selling product? To do that nowadays, you need an audience. And if you come to a publisher or you come to an agent or anything like that, however good you think your book might be, and however good it is, if you have no platform whatsoever, you're already on the back foot. You're already behind everybody else that's going to come through there. I'm not saying you need 1.2, 1.3 million followers on Instagram at all.
But it has.
Yeah, of course it does. You could have 500 followers, and that's it. But if somebody looks at your Twitter feed, which people will do, just as they will do for job interviews and things like that, people will look at your social media feeds, and they look at it and they see that the last time you posted was 6 to 12 months ago, and it was a retweet without kind of any context or anything like that. They can see that, okay, there is work to be done on this person. Whereas if they go on your Twitter feed and they see that the last interaction you had was with another children's book author who was engaged with you and you were talking with them, it again, it already boosts you forward. But also those conversations can lead to massive insights. You know, you can kind of go, oh, okay, well, I've got this piece, sensitivity readers as well. You know, you can have people read your piece. It doesn't, I think a lot of authors, and I understand why, I'm a creative myself, I get it. A lot of authors don't like criticism at all. Creatives do not like criticism. And so they withdraw and they don't engage with an audience. They don't kind of send their stuff out. They send it out to safe readers, like their mum or their dad or their own kids. So many teachers who come to me and say, I'm a primary school teacher or I'm a secondary school or whatever. I've been reading this book to my kids and they really love it. It's like they're trapped in a classroom with you. They're not going to turn around and say, this is horrible.
Detention.
Exactly. They're not going to do that. You're already in a position of power.
Yeah.
You need to be sending this stuff out to completely unconnected people to you. And the best place to do that is places like Scooby's, Society of Authors, is on Twitter, on Facebook, where you find other authors and you find other readers. Set up a WhatsApp group with a bunch of authors in your area, because every area's got at least 50. And chat, share ideas, share stuff, because what you want to send off to a publisher or an agent is the most refined version of what you've got. And when you talk about authors that have waited 15 to 18 years to get their thing sorted and then skyrocket, they've got book deal after book deal after book deal, is because they have been refined through rejection and through change, and they've been kind of worn down into a diamond by this, the barrage of horridness that is in this industry, that you have to kind of suffer those barbs to be able to go, actually, I'm not perfect, my work's not perfect, how can I make it better? And and kind of draw that out. And that's really, I think that's really, really difficult with picture books because there's so few words that people kind of feel like they've finished it very quickly. And then they go over and they might take a month editing that, and it's only a small piece of something, but it could still be refined.
I've often heard people say picture books are easier to write because they're less words, and I would completely disagree, because you're essentially building an entire arc of a story, that still needs all those key foundations that any other story needs, with a fraction of the words. And you're doing it in a way that needs to hold interest. It needs to engage with a very fickle audience that will switch off within the first words if they don't like it. I think, picture books are such an art. And when you're talking about picture book authors, there's some that just get it. There's some that just click with it. I mean, you yourself, you've got Fiona Barker. If you're talking about, fantastic picture book writers, you've got Claire Helen Welsh. If you look at her back catalogue of amazing books, you've got the latest one from M. Linus. That one, is amazing. The Cat and the Hat and the Rat. I always get it the wrong way around, but that one again, when you're reading it and it just flows and works so well, you think, oh, this must have been easy to write. But I know for a fact, getting it to that sort of perfection and that sort of
it takes a lot, but it takes a lot from outside. It takes a lot from outside of that person. You can't do that on your own. I don't think, however talented you are, you can't turn around and go, boom, this is perfect. It's just not possible. Whatever, I think picture books are a lot harder for two reasons. One is it's like a haiku. Like a haiku is much more difficult, I would think, to write perfectly, for it to have meaning and for it to have the structure it needs to, and for it to flow properly, than it would be to write a 10,000 word book, because you've got more room. You've got so much less room in that to do stuff, like you say, to make that arc. And the other side of it is it has to stand up to being read 40 times a week to children who have the attention span of a fish. Like it needs to be something that I can sit there and I don't mind. One of my favorite picture books, it's not a picture book, one of my favorite children's books that we've got in our house is The Book with No Pictures. It is fantastic. It's absolutely fantastic. It's a perfect bedtime book because it flows really well. It gets the kids engaged with you every single time because they love taking the mick out of me, and it's easy for me to read. It's easy for me to just boom, 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 boom. And I think Julia Donaldson, who obviously fantastically talented, but I think the reason her books are so successful with parents, because bear in mind, kids don't buy picture books, parents buy picture books. The reason they're so successful with parents is that rhyme, like I can say that book out loud. I can say Room on the Broom out loud, or The Gruffalo out loud, without having to read it.
And that's the problem with rhyming books. Obviously, if the meter isn't tight enough, and it doesn't flow.
One slip is all it takes.
And everyone wants to write a rhyming picture book. Everyone wants to have their picture book rhyme. I mean, you have the argument for and against translation rights with rhyming picture books. I personally think it's rubbish. I think, a picture book that rhymes, that does it well, will sell well, regardless of what language, you translate.
That's been proven.
It's getting it right, and it's getting that meter right that anyone can pick it up and anyone can sound like a professional reading it. And I think there's so many books out there that the meter isn't quite strong enough on it, or there's just slight slip. And as you said, that's where it comes down to the fact that you can't be on your own when you're doing something like this. Even down to self-published authors and things like that, you still need people around you to support you, whether it's editorially, whether it's critiquing, whether it's design or marketing. You're not an island. It's a team effort, and no one person does it alone. And I think looking at picture books as an example, it's a very hard market because it is such a saturated market as well. I mean, you guys have, you know, you started with picture books, then you moved on to chapter books, and is there any children's books you wouldn't publish? Any topics, any age ranges, anything that isn't your cup of tea?
No. Actually, yes. Fluff. Like where I read it and I'm like, what's the point? What's the message behind this? What's the, like, we've done The Bum That Barked. I love that book, The Bum That Barked. It's about a farting dog. But I read it and it isn't just about a farting dog. It's about anxiety and friendship, and it, you know, there's something in there that I like the message to it. I think that's a big thing about us. Like, we'll pick up things that we like the message within. I mean, at the moment, we're really heavily focused on mental health in children and disability. We're like really hyper focused on those sorts of areas that we're trying to do with our picture books, because we do think there has to be like something. There's got to be something to it. And I think that there's two. When you talk about the market being saturated, lots and lots of people want to write something meaningful, and they want to write something that's going to go out there and help the world. In their minds, they're helping, and that is absolutely fantastic. And I think that's the kind of stuff that we look for. You know, we really do look for those kind of things. But you're also up against Peppa Pig. Like, you're up against Dougie, who has, you know, they have their own TV shows and merch and songs and audio and stuff, and they're backed by this massive publisher who has billions to be able to just throw at marketing and everything. And their books are basically, don't get me wrong, I love Dougie, but they're I hate Peppa Pig. Their books,
you said that live now. You have quoted.
I don't care who knows it. I hate Peppa Pig. It's not shown in my house. It's not shown in my house. But it's that sort of stuff. It's like, you know, this is the same way that we used to market toys to kids. Like, Transformers, the TV show, started because of the toys.
Yeah.
He-Man is for the toys. Pokemon, like all of this stuff, you know, any kind of merchandise that's added to it has always got like this supporting stuff behind it that goes in, you know, sells in the millions and stuff like this. You know, you look at the Gruffalo, it's got its own TV spot and merch and everything, and you're up against those sorts of things. So, like, I want to say that the stuff that we won't touch is those sorts of things, not because I feel like, well, we're too good for that. You know, we're too good for this sort of fluff, but because it's pointless. It's like, excuse my language, it's like farting in the wind. You're throwing your stuff away. So, but at the same time, it's a lot harder for the stuff that we do, and so the stuff that we do has to be better. Like,
you're battling against the mass commercial market with stuff that's more individual and unique, but also, you know, is hard to get out there when you haven't got that mass marketing, you know, channel available to you. I just want to stop you for a second. We've got a question from Atty in the chat. Atty would like to know, what do you look for in a children's poetry collection? Now, I know you have published children's poetry, obviously The Peculiar Powers of
Vegetables and Fruit.
Yes. So The Peculiar Powers of Vegetables and Fruit was a poetry collection that was illustrated by yourselves as well. But Atty would like to know, what do you look for in a children's poetry collection?
It's really difficult, because with poetry, the poems are obviously really important, and a good selection, something that's curated, has a flow to it, so it works in a book. Otherwise, why not just put out individual poems online? Like, it needs to have something. It needs to have a story to it. Basically, it needs to have a point to it. Where it all fits together. I like The Peculiar Powers of Vegetables and Fruit. Excuse me. Everything. That's the lemon Fanta. Everything flows into one subject. and they're all broken down into their own kind of different sub-subjects. So it needs to have something there. The biggest problem with poetry, and we found this with Peculiar Powers, Sharada's absolutely amazing, and Zsa Zsa was like, her illustrations were fantastic, but poetry might sell to some schools. And we did this as a big hardback thing, so it's a coffee table book, and it sells to certain individuals that are looking for those sorts of things. But the problem is that it's not mainstream. Like, it's not something that you go into a shop and pick up a selection of poems for children, unless you're specifically looking for poems for children. Whereas most children's picture books, you'll go like, oh, I like that cover, I like that cover, I like that cover, I like that cover. With poems and stuff, it's something that people are looking for. And with any sort of poetry, adult poetry, children's poetry, or anything like that, for me, specifically for me, I believe it needs a platform. It needs someone who is reading that poetry out there, who is presenting that. You look at some of the best-selling poets, and all of them are like working poets.
Oh yeah,
they're on stage.
For example, Moses Bryan's fantastic. Yeah. Roger Stevens, one of my favourite poets. And if you are into poetry and you do like poetry, go and look up Don Conlon. He's got a YouTube channel. He's on Twitter as well. His most recent poetry book, I believe, was called This Rock, That Rock. And he's just got a way with words. I mean, unless it's rhyming poetry, I can't write it. I just don't have that skill set.
A really simple rhyming couplet.
Yeah, I can't write poetry that doesn't rhyme. I love reading it, and I have the utmost respect for poets, because their skill set is just so phenomenal to make something. Look at Benjamin Zephaniah. Look at some of the stuff he comes out with. Joseph Kalia. Their talent pool is amazing, but as you said, all of them are working constantly.
Yeah, they're all working poets. They're out there talking about. The biggest problem with poetry is that if you don't ever hear it read by the poet, you don't understand how it's meant to be read. And it's really difficult if you're trying to read that poetry. Now, for children, this is where it gets more kind of like difficult. Obviously, for children, you're going to dumb down the kind of the poetic creativity. You're not going to have like half stanzas and moving lines and all of it. You're not going to have all of that stuff in there. You're going to have rhyming couplets. You're going to have simple rhyme going through. And in that situation, you're basically writing a rhyming picture book. But instead of writing a rhyming picture book, it's a short form poem, and then you do a selection of those things. So that's why I say it's got to have something that makes it flow through, for that reason, to make it kind of work. Otherwise, it's just a lot of little stories. But those schools, those kids, those whatever, if they're learning about poetry, or if they're interested in poetry, or any of those sorts of things, they're going to be seeing on their own kind of, depending on their age, their own social media, or they're going to be seeing on TV, like CBeebies or anything like that. They're going to be seeing all of this stuff out there. They're the people that they're going to look for. You don't have to get on CBeebies for it, but like, have a YouTube channel where you read every one of your poems. Have supporting material to show the fun in your poetry, to show that's there. Because marketing, I think, is more important in something like poetry for children than it is for chapter books, middle grade books, any of those sorts of things. It's not going to end up in kind of like somebody going to the works to pick up 5 for £3. It's not going to be something like that. It's something that somebody's going to buy because they love poetry, or something that somebody's going to buy because they've heard that poet speak. Yeah, I mean, I think that's it. It's difficult. Well, we'd love to do more poetry, but we've seen that it needs so much support from the author, from the poet themselves, and a lot of the people that come to us, for obvious reasons, are full-time in work with kids, ain't got time to just go, oh, you know what, every Thursday I'm going to go down to some different part of the country and read poetry. It's not realistic.
So we've got another question that came through before, and again, this is going to be one that you've probably heard quite a lot, and is, you know, a bone of contention for a lot of people.
Oh dear.
Agents. Do people need an agent? The pros and cons.
No, you don't need an agent. You don't need an agent. It depends on where you're going. I have found in my years of experience, there are two types of people, or two types of authors. There are two types, and this is going to upset a lot of people, I know, but this is scientifically proven for me. There are two types of authors, two types of movies. There are people that are going into this for a career, like they're going into this and they work out their profit and loss, they work out their money, they work out all of this sort of stuff. They do, like you've done with the self-published side of things beforehand and stuff like that. You know, like Natalie Reeves-Billing, who we're working with at the moment, like she's a career author. She's pushing those sorts of things, and it's not that they're all about the money, but they see an end goal. Like they see the possibly not the J.K. Rowling route, not for the obvious reasons, but you know they don't see the kind of route going down there, but they might see like, oh, I want to win an award. I want to do this. I want to write books for the rest of my life. That's what I want to do. So I need to make money in order to do that, because I know that I need to market my work. I need to be out there all the time. You know, this is going to be a career for me. This is going to be me out there. Those people, yeah, get an agent. Because it will get you to that point. It will get you to the point where you want to be. With that agent, you also need to realize that people like us are less likely to work with you for two reasons. One, because the agent's going to want you to get as much of an advance royalty as you possibly can, because they get paid, and we don't have that sort of money. Small publishers like us don't have that sort of money. And two, because then we're not talking to you. We're talking to like a middleman going forward with it. And as there's only two people in our entire company.
Two awesome people.
Yeah, we're fantastic, but there's only two of us. That barrier it makes everything slower. Now, don't get me wrong. Fiona Barker has an agent. When she first came to us, she didn't. We did Danny. There was no agent involved in anything. Then there was some time in between that. And then when she came to us with Setsuko, she had an agent. And her agent is awesome. But we already had a relationship with Fiona. And so a lot of the conversations that we have are with Fiona. We work with her as much as we do with our agent. There's no kind of barrier there. And Fiona wants to work with us, like specifically chose us for a project. And so our agent is on board with that. So our agent is absolutely fantastic. And that relationship really worked. But we've also worked with agents before where we never had contacts, not with Tiny Tree, but with MJP. We worked with an agent before. We never had contact with the author at all. And it just caused loads of friction. It made it really, really difficult because we couldn't engage with that person. We couldn't meet two ways. But anyway, like I say, there's that side. Then there's the other side, and there is a bit of beef here, but there's the other type of author who has something they love. Like they have created something they absolutely adore, everything about it. And they've got a vision, and they've got a vision for this thing, and they want that thing out there, and they'll do whatever it takes to get it to as many people as possible if they want to do that. And and that's their sole goal. No, you don't need an agent. You could do that yourself. Like self-publishing exists. It's really, really hard, but it exists. So no, I don't. I think that if you're looking to do this as a career, you might not need an agent now, but at some point, just as anybody who gets successful, you need someone to manage, like all of the expectations.
I think what I've seen is, people want an agent when they start out, then they get a few rejections and decide they're never going to get an agent,
Yeah.
and then try and give up on getting an agent. Or there's the alternative where someone will go with the first agent that offers them, and then they end up with an agent that they don't connect with, or they don't fit with, or
And they're always so scared of leaving. They're
Yeah.
always like, well, if I leave this agent, that's it, my career's over. And it's
I
like,
personally don't have an
Yeah.
agent at the moment. You know, I've never had an agent up until this point. I've never found an agent that I've clicked with, or that sees, you know, my work the way I want it to be seen, or, you know, likes the variety of work that I do. So for me, I've always said, you know, I'm not going to go with an agent just for the sake of going with an agent, you know. And, you know, with publishers like yourselves that are more open to authors and illustrators that don't have agents, that's great. But what I am wary of is a lot of people don't realise that the big five, unless you personally know someone in that publishing house, you are not getting a
even
publishing
if you
deal.
do.
Yeah, even if you do, it's rare. But unless you know someone in that publishing house, or unless you're working there directly, you're not getting a publishing deal without an agent. And a decent agent is worth their weight in gold. What I will say is, if you haven't got an agent and you do get a contract with a publishing house, make sure that you do go through the Society of Authors.
Yeah,
They will check your contracts for you. They will go through them. They will give you support. They can't advise you what to do, but they will give you the support you need in between. And they are worth their weight in gold. Just as I said, you know, those networks are absolutely vital.
Yeah, agent wise, you'll find decent ones out there. You'll find horrible ones out there. Just as with publishers, you know, there'll be great ones out there. There'll be bad ones out there. I don't think that anybody that's come to us and has worked with us, I mean, I'm pretty certain we get good reviews from every author that works with us, because of the way we work, really collaboratively and working really closely. Not all publishers are like that, and the further you get up the chain, like the higher you go, the less like that it is. And instead of 2 people, it's, you know, 300 to 400 people for like a mid-sized publisher. And you get, you know, your work gets passed around, and the rest of it, they've got legal teams, they've got all sorts of things. In those instances, I personally believe you want an agent. You want someone who perhaps doesn't have your best interests at heart, but has their best interests at heart. Like, they want to make the most out of whatever deal they get. And so you will make the most out of whatever deal they get. Otherwise, you could find yourself, you know, either floating around in a publisher for ages and ages and ages, not knowing what's going on, or you find yourself with a contract that, you know, means that you're not making as much as you possibly could do on a deal for your work. I know I've seen some publisher contracts where it's like, any work you do, you have to give us first refusal. I've seen contracts where people have shown that, oh, well, you finish this 4-book series with us, but you can't publish anything else anywhere else whilst you're doing that. And contracts like that, they, you know, you might have written those 4 books already. What are you going to do? Sit on your hands for 5 years whilst they put it together? So there are times when I think agents are really important, but I think for my level and slightly upwards, you don't need one. You don't need an agent. An agent is there when you are out of your depth and need to make sure that you're covered. And as you say, Society of Authors can only do so much with that.
I think, you know, things like Twitter are a godsend nowadays. I think it's a great platform for authors, for illustrators, for creatives, because you can do your homework, and most agents will have a presence on social media, in particular Twitter. But you can also check whether an agent is registered with the Society of Agents. So a lot of them will sign up to that. That shows a good agent as well, you know, legitimate agent.
Look at their other authors. Look at the other authors they're working with.
Yeah, so look at their clientele, look at who they're representing. Is the work that is similar to what your ethics and morals and ethos is? If it is, you know, see what they say about their agent. You know, a lot of authors are more than happy to, you know, tell you about how amazing their agents are and the experiences they've had with them. And a lot of those agents are out there on Twitter, on Facebook, so get to know who you want to submit to. Put together your dream list, your wish list. I always say, though, don't send to every agent in one go. Send in batches, so 2 or 3. Do your research on them.
And don't wait. Just wait. Like, my wife is an author, and she has sent out. She sent out stuff. September, October of last year, and has just received a reply in the last month. You will wait for this stuff. Don't just go, oh, that's it, nothing. I've got nothing. That might be the case, but
it is a waiting, and I think people don't realise how long these processes are. For anyone that's not been published, you submit to an agent or a publisher, you could be waiting 3 to 6 months to get a reply. Once
with me, probably around about 3 to 6 months at least, I think.
Yeah.
I'm trying.
Even longer in some cases. And then, of course, if something goes out on submission to publishing houses, you could be waiting another 6 months. Then it's got to go to acquisitions and contracts. Then it's got to go through editorial. Then it's got to go through review. Then it's got to go through design. Then marketing.
There is no contract up at that point. There is nothing.
You're looking at anywhere from 6 months to 5 years in some cases with books, depending on how big the publishing house is that you're working with as well. And in all this time, they're expecting you to be working on book 2 or book 3, or your agent's expecting you to be working on something else that's ready to go out in the meantime. If you want this as you said, if you want this as a career rather than as a one-off thing, you've always got to be looking at what's your next book going to be. I mean, some people can churn out a book in a couple of months, some people can take years, and some of the the best authors I know, one of my friends, it took them 9 years to write one of their most recent books, but yet it had been nominated for so many awards, and it's such an amazing book, whereas I know other people that have spent like a year or so and churned out a different kind of book. So the journey is so different for each person. Don't compare yourself to other people and what you see their journey looking like.
It's the market, it's the way people feel about stuff, it's where it hits at what time. Like through COVID and all the rest of it, certain books were selling more than others, and there was kind of entertaining kids was a big thing, like big thing. So obviously massive sales on longer form books that can be used there instead of like something you're going to be reading 20 times because you needed that sort of stuff. So it will always change. I think what you just said, going back again to what we were talking about right at the beginning with regards to submissions. You've just said there about the agent stuff. Always do your research. Just do your research. Look around. Social media, websites, anything. Do your research on every aspect of all of it. And I also remembered another thing that I hate in submissions more than anything else. Very, very importantly, when someone sends me a submission and then a month later sends me an email saying, "Hi, I haven't heard from you. Can you get in touch with me to let me know?" Because I've got another publisher on the hook or whatever, but they'll give me some sort of reason. Can you get back to me? And then a month after that, say, considering I haven't heard from you, I expect that you just don't want this book then. And I'm immediately like, don't be passive aggressive with me. Like I've got 300 to 400 submissions to read. I'm not a fast reader. Like you're gonna have to. There's only me. You're gonna have to wait, and I might get back to you in 3-6 months' time and say, "This is the best thing I've ever read. We want to publish this right now." And if you get back to me at that point, which some people do, get back to me and go, "Oh, I'm really sorry. I've already got a publishing deal." I'll kick myself, but it's the way the industry goes. But yeah, don't badger me, please. Don't have a go at me because I've not read your book yet.
So we are coming towards the end of our evening. We've got about 5-10 minutes left.
Cool.
Is there anything you'd like to ask me, James?
Let me see. I'd like. I don't think there's anything I'd like to ask in particular. I mean, we know each other pretty well at this point. I would probably say, like, to tell the audience out there what you think of us as Tiny Tree. Off the top of your head, you can't think about it. No looking at your notes.
So I haven't whatchamacallit, I haven't prepared any notes, unfortunately.
Of course, God, everybody, this is what you do. Next interviewee, come in, do this and stuff, catch her off.
So I didn't actually ever think about submitting to you guys originally. And then I met you guys. I met you at Fiona's book launch and we got chatting, and there was just something about how you guys operated and how you guys, were as a publisher. I liked your ethos. I liked what you stood for. You weren't the biggest one in the world. You weren't the smallest one in the world, but you treated each author as a human being. You treated them like they were part of the team, part of the family. So for me, that was really important. For me, it was really important, to be part of a team that saw me as an individual, not just a conveyor belt. Fair enough. This is a career for me. And it's something that I've been doing for a while, but at the same time,
you get that at a lot of places. You do become a cog in a machine.
And for me, that's fine for most projects. But I also wanted to work with you guys specifically, and I was so glad when you decided to offer me a contract, and you decided that you wanted to work with me. But yeah, I think for me it was the personal approach and the fact that you treat everyone with such respect, and you treat everyone's projects with such respect, and it was like nothing was too much for you guys. Whether it was tweeting about the books coming out, whether it was attending events, whether it was promotional banners and things like that, anything that you could do. Fair enough, limousines and banners on
sorry about the limo. I know you asked for it, but we
maybe on the next book if you
maybe on the next book. I mean, like the other thing I do want to, I know you want to get rid of me, and I understand why, but the other thing I want to talk about is something that we're planning on doing, as Tiny Tree, as MJP. We're planning on doing it at the moment. There's nothing to do with a new book coming out or anything like that. It's not a plug for that. We really regularly get submissions from schools, organizations, individuals, loads and loads of people who are like, how can I get my book published? How can I get my book published? For self-publishing style things. And we always kind of turn them away and say, there's loads of self-publishing outfits out there. You can go, you can go down that route and see what's there. But a lot of these people, they don't want self-publishing. What they want is 10 books in their hand. What the school wants is, they when they say, how can I get published? That's not what they mean. They mean, how can I get a really high quality book, like in my hand to give to my friends and family, or to give to every parent of every child in this school that's wrote a poem in this book, or an organization, a charity or something going, hey, we've got a centennial celebration coming up. We want to put something together. All of these places. And as far as we know, apart from lots of individuals that do fantastic work on this sort of stuff, there's not anybody out there that's kind of just going, hey, we'll do that for you. So we're soon, as soon as we possibly can, going to start rolling out that. Now, there's only 2 of us, me and Anne. So it's going to take us a while to like roll it out full steam. But it's basically going to be kind of an author support, kind of author services. Instead of self-publishing, instead of anything like that, we're not promising, hey, we're going to get your book on Amazon and into Waterstones. We're not promising any of this. We're not saying you pay us £7,000 and you can have your book in every bookstore everywhere and ebooks. It's basically saying, hey, what do you want? What are you looking for? And the same way that we do our usual publishing, really collaborative, kind of treating everybody like a person, like a human, as you just said, turning around and going, what is it you want to do? Here's how much it will cost us. Here's how much it will cost you to, like, for us to typeset this book for you and to do you a cover. That's fine. But is there anything else? How can we help you with this? And there'll be set prices for stuff and things like that. But it's kind of, we feel that there's not at the moment a space for those people between the self-publishers who are wanting to start their authoring career and the traditionally published people. There's not like a gap in the market, as it were.
And of course, people have to be aware of vanity publishers and things like that. For anyone that doesn't know what a vanity publisher is, they will offer to publish your manuscript, and they will pretend that they are a traditional publishing house, and then they will start asking you for contributions, and they will ask you for money. A traditional publishing house will never ask you for money. They'll never ask you for a contribution. A self-publishing service, an assistance service, things like that, will clearly lay out what their services are and how they can support you with your book. But a vanity publisher will mask themselves and pretend they're something they're not. And in some cases, they can take tens of thousands of pounds off people. I'm not going to mention any names, obviously, in a live stream. I've got 2 questions here for you, James.
Okay, go on.
The first one, I think you're going to answer very quickly. And it's from someone called Pete, who says, I want to be published in about a week. Can James help?
I can help, most definitely. If you've got a completely finished manuscript, typeset, cover, print ready files, I can definitely get your book printed in a week. Easy peasy.
If this is the person I think it is, they've never.
Oh, I know who it is.
They've never read a complete book, so I doubt they're going to have a book ready to be published in a week. And we've got one more question in the chat from Ginger the Hut, who says, "Hey James, what's something that stands out in a submission for you and gets you excited about a manuscript?" So I know we talked earlier about the submission process and the do's and don'ts, but when you're reading a manuscript, it's a story about a dog and a cat behaving. So what's something that gets you excited about a manuscript? What gets you thinking, I want to see the rest of this, I want this in my hands, this is something I want to see more of?
Man, it's a really hard question, because it depends on the type of manuscript. It depends on so many factors, it really does. But let's say blind. Let's say I don't take into account anything about the author. I don't take into account anything about anything else. And I come in and I have a look at manuscripts. It's going to sound really sad, but is it well formatted? It's going to sound, that's absolutely terrible. But like,
no. And I hear that a lot from a lot of people that say, so when you send your submission out, a lot of publishers' agents will ask for it to be at least 12 size font, double spaced and formatted correctly. Because if they get a text that is literally just crammed full of writing, it's so hard for them to focus on the story in front of them. They're not looking at the story, they're just looking at a block of text, which makes it harder for them to invest in the story. Some people don't, some people can read it and still feel drawn in. But no, I hear that from a lot of people that say their submissions, if it isn't formatted properly, they will not read it.
It's really hard. It's really hard to be there and kind of try and really focus on a good story when I'm struggling to read. All right, Pete, we get it. When I'm really struggling.
I think he's trying to write the entire book in emojis.
Emojis. I mean, that's fine. I'll do an emoji book happily.
So there we go. Next big marketable thing. Emoji
book. Well, they've done an emoji movie. It was terrible, but they did it.
This one's about dogs and cats, apparently. So hi to first chat viewer, Sweden official. Thanks for joining us today. But yeah, no, I agree completely. The layout can be a really big thing. I mean, I get sent a lot of stuff to read for other people, and for me, if something isn't formatted properly or isn't laid out, you read that many things day in, day out, that it can make it a lot harder to read, which then makes it a lot harder for you to be invested in that story from the offset. So
also we get sent, I ask for 3 if it's a chapter book or YA or middle grade or anything like that, so the first 3 chapters. If it's a children's picture book, obviously we want the full manuscript. I'm obviously going to start reading from the first line and go forward. If the first, in a picture book, if the first 10 lines, the first 100 words don't grab me, it's less likely, because I've got so much to read through, that I'm going to read through the rest of that. It's less likely it's going to, if the rhyming doesn't work, or the story doesn't make any sense to me, or there's nothing there. Synopses obviously help massively with that, so I can go, oh no, okay, I know where they're going with this, so I can follow it through, and that's easier in a picture book. A good synopsis is really important, like massively important. But the for a chapter book or a middle grade or something like that, the first 3 chapters, if I struggle to get through the first chapter for whatever reason, if I really struggle to get through there, there's no hook, there's no like character I can engage with, there's nothing there. Again, it's going to be, and I don't think that's unnatural, because that's every reader anywhere ever. I don't know about you, but when I go into a bookstore, I read the blurb and I read the first page.
I also read the last page, but that's just me.
Nobody reads the last page. Why would you read the last page?
I have to. It's a bad habit. To be honest, I don't tend to read blurbs or the first page or anything unless I'm looking at it for a purpose. For me, it's all about the cover.
Oh yeah, everybody judges a book by its cover.
Irrelevant of what a book's about, irrelevant of the blurb or what I've seen online. For me, it's all about a cover. Yeah. And the cover can make or break it for me, which is really bad, because you shouldn't judge a book by a cover.
That is rubbish. That is absolute. I'm sorry, I'm getting incensed now. Yeah. That is the stupidest saying that has ever existed in all the time. Don't judge a book by its cover. Yeah. Why? Everybody does.
Yeah.
Everybody does. It's like, you look at a house that's got cracks all over the walls and all the rest of it, you kind of think in your head, possibly that's not a great place to live. Everybody from their first look. But it's not just, and you'll probably agree with this, it's not just visual. It's feel and smell. If you pick up a book and it's got like that rubberized cover, or some really nice spot UV on it, and it kind of shines at you when you're looking past it, or you pick
got some fancy flaps.
Fancy flaps, yeah. Or love good fancy. I probably should stop saying that. And there's loads of, there's something about it. Like you pick it up and you're like, oh, this feels great. This looks great. This is absolutely amazing. I'm going to buy this because I want it on my shelf. I may never read it, but I want it on my shelf. And it encourages people to go. So yeah, covers are massively important, obviously.
So you read a lot of submissions. You get a hell of a lot of submissions sent through. Does that mean that you're a fast reader?
No.
How fast do you read?
Oh, good. No, not fast. No, not fast at all. I wouldn't even give it a number. I'd give it a day, maybe. I'd give it like a word every week. I'm a painfully slow reader because I read visually. I read audibly as well. And I have desperately tried over the last 10 years to train myself to speed read, and I can speed read, but I don't know if I like something unless I'm reading it as I would a book I like. So I need to kind of sit down, and the voice in my head changes to the voice of the narrator, to the author. I read the tones of people's voices. When I'm reading about a scene, the visualization of that scene, all of that is really, really important to me. Because if I read it and I'm like, yeah, I'm on a beach right now, and I can hear this person talking to me in my head, I'm like, that's well written. That's really well written, because it's done that to me. Whereas if I'm like, okay, I've got to the end of this page, but I don't remember what I read, I know that it's possibly not for me, and possibly something's missing from that. So I use other readers. Like if I look at something and I go, I love the first chapter of this, absolutely love it, and I love the synopsis, and I love the author. It's a big part of a big thing that draws us in is the author. I love their attitude and everything. Love everything about this, but it's 700 pages long, and I've got 300 submissions. I'm not going to get through that. And if I try and get through that, I'm not going to get anybody else looked at. So I'll send it off and go, somebody else read this and tell me if you like it as much as I do. And if you do, then I'll go back and read the rest. Like I'll go back and I'll have that conversation with the author and I'll go through that process and stuff. I will say to anybody who's listening or anybody who sees this afterwards on YouTube, Twitter, anywhere, I am going through my submissions. I know you've all been waiting for a lot. I'm so sorry.
If you are waiting, he has not forgot about you.
I'm not. I'm into.
He reads every single one himself. He checks everyone himself.
It is just me. Like I am the person you're sending this stuff to. So if you're waiting, I promise I am looking at everything. Just going to take me a little while. I think I'm down to 268, and the latest one is sometime in January. I think I'm into January now. I'm pretty sure I'm into January. Yeah, I'm into January. So it's hard.
So we've run over slightly.
Sorry.
No. Hopefully I've answered all the questions. The last comment from Pete was, everyone likes cats and dogs. I have a dog on my cover. My book smells like a wet dog.
I mean, that is a niche market. It's a niche market, but it's still a market.
Yeah. Well, Pete, I'm sure you know, if you haven't got an agent, I'm sure you can send it through Tiny Tree Books. The website is open, and your submissions are always open, aren't they?
They are. We're gonna be we may close them soon. Literally, not because we don't want submissions, but to give me time to go through the submissions we've already got so that we can then take on more submissions.
So if you do want to submit to them, be aware their submissions may be closing for a short period, but don't worry, they will reopen again. So don't rush and send your manuscript in before it's ready. Make sure you wait, make sure you've edited it, make sure it's the best it can be to give it that chance to stand out in that pile, whether you're sending it to Tiny Tree or whether you're sending it to an agent or another publisher. You know, my personal advice would be, you know, don't write it on the Friday and send it off on the Sunday. Put it away in a drawer. Let it sit for a little while. Then go back and edit it, because you'll see the things that are missing. You know, change the font size, change the color, change the text, read it out loud. You'll notice things that you didn't notice the first time round when you were engrossed in that verbal spew of a first draft that we all love the buzz of. You know, make sure that it's given the best chance it can be, because, you know, in an inbox that's already got 300 submissions in, you need to be able to stand out, and you want to do yourself as much justice as possible.
Yeah, we're small. Like 300 submissions is big for us, but when you're talking about some of these larger places, you're talking thousands of submissions.
So you guys are on social media, aren't you? If anyone wants to follow you and ask any other questions or get any information.
Tiny Tree Books.
So Tiny Tree Books on Twitter, Facebook. You're on Instagram as well, aren't you?
Anthony has put us everywhere. I have no idea. I'm terrible at social media.
I don't think you're on TikTok yet. I don't think you're on TikTok or YouTube yet.
No, I am on TikTok.
Yeah. Too much.
Not that I will post anything ever, because look at this. But I am on. We will go on TikTok when we've got something that we can show that isn't our faces.
So thank you, James, for joining me tonight as our first ever guest on Wednesday Wisdom. We will be back next Wednesday at 8:30 with our next special guest. I'm not going to spoil the surprise yet. If anyone does have any questions for James, you can fire them through to us, or you can follow them on Instagram, Twitter and Facebook at Tiny Tree Books. As we said, their submission box is open at the moment. If it does close, it will reopen in the future. And thank you for watching. If you're not already already following us, feel free to hit that follow and subscribe button to keep up to date with everything that's going on. And feel free to check us out on other social media platforms. The full video of this will be going across to YouTube, so you can catch up if you've missed any of it. And thank you for joining us tonight, guys. Pete, what about you? But you need to send it in. You need to submit it. If it's scratch and sniff, I'm not sure how you're going to send it via email. You may need to send it by post.
I really don't want to get that.
Guidelines are on the website.
I really don't want to get that in the post. I'm going to get a wet dog in the post. I don't. That sounds terrible. That sounds terrible. Just
if not, Pete, I'm sure you can look up their address and hand deliver it to them.
Yeah.
So, James, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Thank you for being our first guest on Wednesday Wisdom. We will be streaming live some games later, and our schedule for the week is up. So join us both virtually and in store. We've got some TCG games coming up. We've got some more Fortnite. I won a game of Fortnite the other night. First time I ever managed to, win. I'm very proud of myself. And we will see you all again soon, guys. That's all from us tonight, and good night.